Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel, friends. It's time for a little classic Star Trek as we watch Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 25, Bread and Circuses. Full disclosure, friends, I've heard this title quite a bit. Now, again, no context related whether or not that people thought it was a good episode or a bad episode or indifferent or any of the specifics about it. I just, I've seen that title since I started doing this series, so interesting to finally get to it, friends. I can't wait. Before we get started, though, if you could do me a huge favor and hit that like button, smash the subscribe, or ring the bell for notifications, it greatly helps out a small channel and it allows me to alert you next time we set sail on the NCC 1701. And of course, if there's anything that we do that you would like early or in its full-length format, the link to our Patreon is in the description, my friends. But all that is then and this is now, and now it's time to once again journey into Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 25, Bread and Circuses. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction. And away we go! Oh, look at that beauty, drifting in.
No doubt about it, Captain. Space debris comes from the survey vessel, the SS Beagle.
Ooh.
Navigator, compute the present drift of the wreckage.
Computed and on the board, sir.
Chekhov says, got it.
It would have come from Planet 4, Star System 892, directly ahead. Small Class 4, Star Drive vessel, crew of 47, commanded by... Jim, I believe you knew him. Captain R.M. Merrick.
He was dropped in his 5th year. He went into the merchant service.
Coming up on the planet, Captain.
Oh, really? He failed out? Flunked out? That's an odd thing. Odd to hear about it.
Exactly like Earth.
Exactly in some ways, different in others.
I also picked up indications of large cities.
Really?
It's a news broadcast using a system I think they once called video.
In these fresh outbreaks of treasonable disobedience by well-treated, well-protected intelligence slaves.
Ah, well.
Conducted, however, with traditional weapons, it prevented some of the for a few moments.
Jesus.
Transmission lost, sir. Shall I try to get it back?
Slaves. And gladiator.
Prime directive. Prime directive.
As the Barbarian is also listed here. Flight Officer William B. Harrison of the SS Beagle.
Ready the transporter room, Mr. Spock. You're beaming down.
This is going to be a problem. Okay, Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier. I see now where all of you were kind of warning me early on in season 2. You were like, this is the beginning of the Parallel Earth series. And I thought, oh, okay, cool. And then we had, like Patterns of Force and, then we get on to Omega Glory and now apparently Bread and Circuses. So, whatever. Anytime I get to see this crew do what they do, I'm down with it. I actually, full disclosure about the Omega Glory, I just got done editing that one. The Omega Glory, you can't explain, the preamble to the Constitution and stuff, but the episode itself I loved because Morgan Woodward was in it. It was a weird, like, Act 3 reveal, where it was like, by the way, Old Glory. You're like, I have questions. Yeah, whatever. Gladiator stuff, I'm down with it, man. Let's do this. 2 moons, it looks. 3 moons. No, 2. I thought I saw a shadow of a 3rd. Okay, let's see. Who is our writer and who is our director? Uh-oh. Gene and Gene. Ralph Sininsky. We're in good hands. We'll have to wait until Trelane gets a chance to look and see if everything went okay with the script. Anytime Roddenberry's involved.
And partially consumed hydrocarbons.
The word was smog.
I had no idea you were that much of a historian, Doctor.
I am not, Mr. Spock. I was simply trying to stop you from giving us a whole lecture on the subject.
How dare you call me a historian?
The SS Beagle was the first ship to make a survey of the star sector when it disappeared.
Then the Prime Directive is in full force, Captain?
Man, I started off this series really not caring for Plum, and honest to God, he is absolutely the bee's knees now for me.
You could hardly claim to be an angel with those pointed ears, Mr. Spock, but say you landed someplace with a pitchfork.
Okay. Beam us up.
The language here is English.
I said don't move.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, shoot. 4 shooters. Yeah, you're not going to be able to grab your communicator now.
Call those. I call them ears.
Trying to be funny.
Never.
No.
Probably some new Praetorian guard. I should kill you here.
Praetorian Guard unit.
Move. Move.
Quick. Let's move our way to Septimus. First name. Deviated. Is this our same rock formation? Are we back at Vasquez Rocks Natural Park?
For we're men of peace ourselves.
Are you children of the sun?
Yes.
I know killing is evil, but sometimes it's necessary.
No.
But they've located us, our hiding place.
I can prove we're telling the truth. A small device. I'll take it out slowly.
Boom.
Including ourselves. How many of us are there?
12, Captain.
Good, Scotty. The Enterprise is our ship, somewhere at sea. That's all I can tell you. If it isn't sufficient, you will have to kill us.
I'm not sure I'd play that card yet, but...
Tell me the Empire has a device like that, Flavius, and you may kill them. Otherwise, accept them as friends.
Flavius is bitter. I'll see myself out.
Very much like Earth. An amazing example of Hodgkin's law of parallel planet development.
Oh, I think you all told me about that.
There are no other worlds.
The stars.
Wow.
Lights shining through from heaven. It is where the sun is.
Captain, I thought you might find this interesting.
I believe my autumnal color is orange.
Neptune bath salts.
Taken from the names of false gods. When I was a senator, I worshipped them too.
He was a senator.
Perhaps you know his name. Merrick. Captain Merrick.
Americus?
Uh-oh. That struck a nerve. Is Merrick good or bad?
I was there when he became Lord of the Games. If he is your friend, you are no friends of ours.
This guy's almost as paranoid as I am. And that's saying something.
If Captain Merrick is Merricus, then he has violated that law and he must be taken away and punished. Will you help us to get to the truth of all this?
I guess Merricus thought he was stuck here forever.
First, I must discuss it with the others.
Second, I must poop. This coffee is strong.
Were you told why Merrick was dropped from the Space Academy?
He failed his psycho-simulator test. All it takes is a split second of indecision.
Great.
Because, my dear Mr. Spunk, it is illogical. Rome had no sun worshippers. Why should they parallel Rome in every way except one?
Christianity, is that what they're trying to simulate?
I caution you, take great care. The police are everywhere. May the blessings of the sun be upon you.
Ah, nice shot, Mr. Sininsky. I bet you that was a bitch to filter.
We'll wait here until dark.
Thank God that the toboggan is a staple in every parallel world.
For 7 years, I was the most successful gladiator in this province.
Then you heard the word of the sun.
No. Yes. Words of peace and freedom.
There are many things I'd like to know.
Oh, shit. I can cancel that stress test. Holy smokes. That's the biggest jump scare I've had in Star Trek. How did Greg die? Well, he was watching Bread and Circuses and was not prepared. He was not ready.
4 fleeing fish, a fine haul. Flavius Maximus.
3 dickheads. Excuse me, 5 dickheads.
Oh, not slave. Barbarian. Been a long time since I've watched barbarians die in the arena.
Well, great. I'm glad we could help.
Astonishing similarities to 20th century Earth, down to the fine carbon steel in the barn.
Well, Jim, we're back in prison. What about a take me to your leader?
Tell him it's Jim Kirk. Perhaps a friend.
Perhaps.
Well, if I am a friend, and you don't tell him.
You're fucked. Yikes. That logic caught me by the butt. You guys spend a considerable amount of your lives behind bars.
Medical men are trained in logic, Mr. Spock.
Really, Doctor? I had no idea they were trained. Watching you, I assumed it was trial and error.
Are they enemies, Captain?
Wow, yes. And also best friends.
The message of the sun, that all men are brothers, was kept from us.
The sun. I see.
It does often seem that man must fight to live.
This guy's doing a good job. Flavius looks like Ryan Reynolds. Right there.
Come, I will not fight. I am a brother of the sun.
Put a sword in your hand and you'll fight.
You're probably right. I probably am going to kill.
I doubt if he'll get very far. He feels ill.
I do.
It's my turn to be sick. Ooh, Jim with some dirty fighting.
Let's go.
McCoy with some surgical ooh. It's Marcus.
They do well in the arena.
I knew that guy.
This is our proconsul, Claudius Marcus.
But this is no place for a reunion.
This way. Your friends too.
This is Claudius Erectus. I'm in middle school, apparently.
Don't judge me before you know the facts.
Too late.
Come on. We can talk freely here. The proconsul knows who and what we are.
Well, good. The reason why I don't trust you, Marcus, is your face. Your face speaks of lies and horse shit.
A pity we can't let him loose in our hospitals. Our level of medicine would improve immeasurably, I'm sure.
Come, you must be hungry.
The lead here is the Enterprise is in orbit and will rain hellfire down upon this place if we're...
I went ashore with the landing party to look for iridium ore for repairs, and I met this gentleman. So I made the decision to stay.
Okay.
What happened to
your
your crew?
I ate them.
A conservative world based on time-honored Roman strengths and virtues.
What happened to your crew?
Yeah, dude, answer the question.
For 400 years, Jim.
The question.
Land of that same era make that same boast?
Where is your effing crew?
They do seem to have escaped the carnage of your first 3 world wars, Doctor.
They have slavery, gladiatorial games, despotism.
And you, Captain, which world do you prefer? My world proconsul is my vessel, my oath, my crew.
Speaking of which, your oath and your crew.
Those that were able to adapt to this world are still alive. Those who couldn't adapt are dead. Just as I did, Jim, you're going to order your own people ashore.
What?
There may be over 400 men on your ship, Captain, but they can be brought down if it's handled properly.
I'm never going to do that.
Your communicator, Captain Kirk.
I'm never going to do it.
Do save us all a lot of unnecessary trouble and issue the appropriate orders.
Sure. Beam everybody in this room up.
Do you really believe I can be made to order my own people down?
Right. Come on now. This is Jim Kirk.
But you would do almost anything, rather than see these 2 dear friends put slowly to death.
I'm not going to condemn the rest of my crew. The needs of the many, baby.
Jim.
Jim doesn't give a shit. Beam me up.
And violate your oath regarding non-interference with other societies.
I like how this guy thinks he knows it all.
Before you'd violate that directive, am I right?
Quite correct.
That's why he's not going to bring anybody down. It violates the prime directive. Dumb asshole.
Jim, you've already started a message. Your engineer is waiting. What are you going to do?
Well, Claudius Erectus over here thinks he's got it all figured out.
Condition green, all's well, Kirk out.
This is not an academy training test. This is for real.
Right, I passed those. You didn't. This isn't like the academy where they unfairly test you. And they're concerned because you're sociopathic. My test came back, could possibly kill entire crew. Can you believe that?
But they have used the code term condition green, which means they're in trouble. But it also prohibits my taking any action.
We need a code that means I'm in trouble, beam me up in 3 minutes.
No order can stop me from frightening them.
There you go, Scotty. I was just about ready to be like, that is the worst matte painting they've used yet. Love it.
We're in a tape commercial, Proconsul, for 40 seconds, then we'll be back live.
Ah, who gives a shit? I'm going to be up here with limited information acting like I know it all. I'm going to start calling Maricus Shoddy McDowell because he reminds me of Roddy McDowell.
And facing them, two favorites here from previous encounters, Achilles and Flavius.
Oh, no!
Victory or death? And for which of them?
Flavius is a big effing dude, man. This will aid with your vision. Spock should just be able to, like, muscle through this.
Bang with the pointed ear. Seems to be in trouble.
He seems to be in trouble?
Most of my men went the same way. I hoped I would feel it less with yours.
Listen, Maricus, if you think Spock's checking out... Cat calls, hisses.
You bring this network ratings down, Flavius, and we'll do a special on you.
Don't you F with our Nielsen's. I find this absurd and fascinating in the best possible way.
Spock, to finish the man off first, will he be able to help?
We believe men should fight their own battles.
Oh, do you?
Ready to order your men down, Captain?
No, and I don't care for your tone.
The games have always strengthened us. Death becomes a familiar pattern. We don't fear it as you do.
I'm about ready to follow my own sword to keep you from monologuing.
At least defend yourself. I am defending myself.
I'm a doctor, not a sword fighter.
Proconsul, in some parts of the galaxy, I have seen forms of entertainment that makes this look like a folk festival.
Yeah, don't act like you're the superior intellect here, or you have like this vast reservoir of knowledge. Jim comes from the stars.
You're a clever liar, Captain Kirk. Maricus was a spaceship captain. I've observed unfairly. Your species has no such strength.
Maricus is a weak piece of shit. I ain't. Crank up the booze. Did somebody say booze?
Oh, ridiculous. Illogical question.
Get mad. Get mad, Plum. Go to sleep.
Clear foul, Proconsul. Your decision?
I'm going to put my thumb down now.
Take them back to their cage.
Well, it won't go that easily for them, Captain. Or for you.
My threats appear hollow.
Take him to my quarters.
I must have more deliciously sliced meats.
I was told to wait for you.
Okay.
For this evening, I was told I am your slave. Command me.
Tell me everything you know about him. Tell me the layout of this place. Tell me.
I'm not cooperating. I may die, but you won't get any entertainment out of it.
Oh, I'd love it if he just started bending it. Oh my God, that'd be so cool.
Frustrated, perhaps? Such emotions are foreign to me, Doctor. I'm merely testing the strength of the door.
No, he wasn't. We saw that. We saw the face.
Spock.
I love it. Him working, just trying to figure out a weakness.
I know we've had our disagreements.
But you're buddies.
What I'm trying to say is... Doctor, I'm seeking a means of escape. Will you please be brief?
I'm trying to thank you, you pointed-eared hobgoblin.
Why, you're not afraid to die, Spock. You're more afraid of living. The day you stay alive is just one more day you might slip. You're a human half geek out.
Plum's got your number, Spock.
Really, Doctor?
Awesome. Great exchange. It's like Bones understands Spock way more than we probably give him credit for. At least I give him credit for. I'm worried about Jim. Meanwhile,
Very good.
this is paint thinner.
Perhaps this is considered torture here.
Torture? I do not understand.
It would please me to know everything about the layout of this place.
At the first sign of pain, you will tell me.
You'll be the first to know.
It's in the contract, everybody. Are we paying up to the lamp? Really?
By the way, one of the communicators we took from you is missing. Was it my pretty Drusilla by any chance?
Why would I tell you if it was?
Not that I would have punished her. I would have blamed you.
Okay.
You must die shortly, and because you are a man.
How do you think that's going to work out?
Would you leave us, Merrick? The thoughts of one man to another cannot possibly interest you.
This is where he offers you Merrick's job.
Because you are a man, I gave you some last hours as a man. I promise you, you will die easily, quickly.
I thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
When that time comes, the same, of course.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Gods.
Dance for us.
We preempted 15 minutes on the early show for you, in full color. We guarantee you a splendid audience.
I'll guarantee that this match goes 17 minutes.
As crude as television.
I've heard it was similar.
All banks in readiness for disruption of power sources on the planet's surface.
Make it a quick single thrust.
Somewhere, Michael Scott is exploding.
Notice! If you want death, fight me!
Sweet Jesus! Oh no!
Now, Mr. Chekhov, activate.
Gods, don't let him escape! God!
Wow. Flavius, man, that was some baller move right there. Get back, yep.
Obsolete but effective. What happened, Jim?
Obsolete but effective.
We're in each other's line of fire. I pity you, Captain Merrick. But at least watch and see how men die. Swords only!
Watch how men die. Let's give them a chance.
Sergeant, lock in on this. 3 to beat.
Well, you tried. I was pretty sure that Merrick got it, but he's going to slide it to him. Yep. Woo, doggy. Well, that's a horse of a different color, isn't it?
Note commendation, Engineering Officer Scott.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Temptation and strong personal feelings. He obeyed the prime directive.
Scotty, your list of commendations is substantial.
Sun worship is usually a primitive superstition religion.
The sun.
You have it all wrong, Mr. Spock, all of you.
Tell him, Uhura.
It's not the sun up in the sky. It's the Son of God.
Caesar. And Christ. They had them both.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be something to watch, to be a part of? To see it happen all over again.
Nice. Oh, great shot. Her running dark. All right, everybody. We just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 25, Bread and Circuses. And the only thing left to do is to talk about it. All right, everybody, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 25, Bread and Circuses. Well, friends, this was another one of those parallel development Earths. And, you know, again, we understand why. It's not something that we really have to get into. This was really kind of a survival mechanic for the show at this point. It was, how can we keep costs down? How can we make ourselves a viable product for, you know, the studio to continue to work with? You know, we need to make sure we cut costs when we can. But, you know, again, I don't think they're sacrificing story for this, because I think this was a good episode. Omega Glory was good up until the point. You know, Patterns of Force, I thought was a great episode. You know, again, I'm always going to lean towards the side of enjoying the episode, simply because watching these characters has been just a delight for me. So, you know, I've got rose-colored lenses on a lot of times. But to take that for what you will, you know, I'm always going, unless it's like the alternative factor, I'm never really going to like really just straight poo-poo something, because the one thing that I found, and I experience it myself quite a bit, you know, like whenever I say something to the effect of, boy, you know, Friday's Child, oh, I really enjoyed that episode. I thought the exterior shots were great. You know, people will be like, you like that one? Really? You know, and then, but, you know, respectful. Everybody's been, you know, respectful about, you know, your likes and dislikes. But then ones that I'm not really that fond of, a lot of people be like, "Oh, this is just one of my guilty pleasure. I love this episode. You know, it's really cool. In this one moment, I really, or this was the first episode of Star Trek I have ever seen." I always think about stuff like that. I always think to myself, you know, again, if I don't like an episode, I know that there's somebody out there that really, really does, that really loves the episode. And, you know, I can critique it without being disrespectful. And that's what I try to be. And if I ever am, you know, I just go in double barreled, know that it's always tongue in cheek, you know, because I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. And I think that's one of the one of the best strengths of Star Trek, the original series, is that, you know, all the fans, you know, I can start to include myself in this almost through 2 seasons. You know, we have our favorite episodes. And they're not all the same episodes. Sure, Balance of Terror always pops up. You know, City on the Edge of Forever will most likely come up in somebody's, you know, top 3 or 5 or 10 list. But then there's always like that anomaly. You know, there's always that one that comes in that people are like, "You like that? Yeah, I did. I loved it. Oh, awesome." You know, maybe I'll take a look at it again because what you said was really cool. You know, whenever I read a comment and I'm like, "Oh, I got to give Charlie X another shot," you know, and I think that's a huge strength of it because there's something for everybody, it seems, in this show. And I really, really enjoyed that. So, you know, with the parallel development, we're watching an episode of Star Trek. I think with this episode, I think that if you boiled it down to its essence, what can we take away from this episode? You know, set in a 20th century Roman Empire, which was very interesting. I think that with briefly with the development worlds, it's a way for them to insert like heavier themes and have our characters like deal with them. It's something that would almost be used for like a time travel episode. You know what I mean? Like our group goes back to Nazi Germany. Our group goes back to the Roman Empire. How do they react in such strange climes? You know, again, but they just switch it up a little bit so they don't have to do the time travel stuff. And the parallel development stuff that's what I look at it as. It's just a way to get our guys where they need to be in whatever moment in time they want to have. Now, with all that put aside, if you boil it down to just its raw, you know, if we take it down to its dodecahedron of, you know, essence of a human, essence of an episode, I think the takeaway from this one is twofold. The lesser of the two is an interesting way to compare, you know, the Merrick and Kirk comparisons were being made by, and I called him Claudius Erectus, and I can't stop calling him that, so the bad guy. You know, the comparisons between the two of them, like he was a captain, but he was drummed out of the academy. And then, of course, we know Kirk very well. And it shows the strengths and weaknesses of Merrick, obviously, you know, like how he folded, how he, you know, ultimately he had a redemptive moment at the end whenever he was able to, you know, basically get them out of there and save them. Which was interesting. Is in a way I kind of like that for the character. He was reminded of what he had done, like the you know what he had gone through, and he was seeing how it could have been done in Kirk. And you know, there's shame involved with that. And I think that that was a really cool message to kind of show that redemption, that he was able to kind of bring himself back around, while at the same time comparing how he reacted to the way Kirk reacted. And Kirk reacted just the way we thought he would. You know, I'm not bringing my people down. And of course, Claudius had this idea that bring down 100 of your people, bring down all of your people now. No, well, you can't order them to do anything because that's the prime directive being broken. So's ordering them down. Shit, didn't think that far ahead. You know, it's like it fell apart himself. He provided the answer to his own question. You know, it was just hilarious. But I think the heaviest theme in all of this, or the one that I'll take away anyway from all of this, was the relationship between Spock and McCoy. I think that we had maybe some of the, I guess, deepest development in this episode. We had very rarely do we have a scene that is just McCoy and just Spock. No Kirk involved, nobody else involved, just the two of them. And I always find it interesting to see that they kind of tone down what McCoy does. McCoy will kind of tone down his kind of harsh rhetoric, you know, his sarcasm and stuff. Most of the time. And Spock, the thing is with Spock now, Spock continues his sarcasm even when they're alone. You know, like he doesn't drop the barbs that he is throwing out. But what I really liked about all this, and I really, really dug about all this, McCoy nailed it. Nailed Spock. You're not scared to die. you're scared to live because you know that if every day that you live, you can F up and all of a sudden you could feel something. That's great. Now, just as and I think that's a takeaway. Obviously, it's a reminder to me. And when I started watching these episodes, when I started watching the original series, it was a way for me, again, I'm coming from just watching the original series crew from the movies. And they don't get into a lot of stuff in the movies because they expect, they assume you already know all this stuff. So they're not going to get into these themes about, Vulcan emotion other than just kind of surface level stuff. Seeing this though, and when I first started watching this, I knew that I knew this was incorrect, but my mind kind of just thought, oh, Spock can't feel anything. He can't feel emotion, so he's emotionless. That is not the case. I've known that from the beginning, but it took a while for me to kind of, think that way because as you all have explained to me, it's not even like he's half human and the human half is the half that could potentially give him the emotions. Vulcans in and of themselves have much stronger, correct me obviously if I'm wrong here, friends, as it's been explained to me, Vulcans have much stronger natural emotions than humanity, which resulted in them as almost a survival mechanic, repressing their emotions so they didn't just were constantly in a bloodlust or something like that, heightened sense of emotion. And so in a way, it's almost like the human half of him is actually the less emotional side of him that doesn't need to, it's not going to be the thing that tips him over into having an emotional response. It's actually that Vulcan half that he has to keep super repressed because it's like a volcano inside of him of emotion, glass case of emotion. But the cool thing about this is that McCoy knows it. They're friends. They're the best of friends, the three of them. And, McCoy has read him. McCoy always says he's not a psychiatrist, but McCoy's pretty good at being a counselor. And especially with his buddies and especially with Spock, he can read Spock like a book at this point. And when Spock shook that cage, now his back was to McCoy, so McCoy couldn't read the face. And we all saw that grimace of fuck, as he was trying to get out of that thing. And McCoy said, oh, you get frustrated. And Spock lies and says, no, I was just testing it. Well, no, Spock, we saw what you did. Now, again, admit the truth or he's lying to himself. You can, I'm saying it. It looked like he definitely was frustrated and he pulled that shit back in real quick before he faced McCoy. But McCoy caught it. And McCoy knew. And an enemy doesn't catch things like that. An adversary doesn't catch things like that. A competitor doesn't catch things like that. Doesn't care to, because that in and of itself is an emotional investment in the person that you're observing. Oh, they're in trouble. Oh, this is something counter to what how they normally act. If you don't care for somebody, you don't care to even mention stuff like that. Why do you care if they're off or whatnot? So it's obvious that McCoy has a respect at the very least for Spock. And I think that's what this episode, Bread and Circuses, was able to really take away, was that it's prevalent at all times. And, Spock saying, oh, it was just logical for me to save your life because it would have made the Enterprise less efficient. Another lie, right? Again, you can say, yes, was that true? It would make it less efficient. Yes. And that's what Spock likes to do. Spock likes to tell something that could be true, but it's not really true for Spock. Because if anybody who's a fan looks at Spock and says, oh yeah, he just saved him because the Enterprise needed its chief medical officer. Come on. We know. Yes. Is that maybe 10% of the reason why he did it? Sure, because he can't abandon logic completely. Spock saved his life because he's his buddy. And whether he wants to admit it or not, we know that. But there's a lot of things we don't know, friends, about this episode, especially whenever you see, and again, maybe it'll be different this time, when you see Gene Roddenberry's name as being associated with the credited story writer story, written by blah, blah, blah. There's usually a script problem, but there's a lot of other things going on here too, friends. Like, were we to assume that Kirk had sex with Drusilla in this one? Because I think that's a first for the episode. That pan up to the lamp, I don't know. What are we supposed to take from that? There's only one person that can tell us the ins and outs of what went on behind the scenes of this episode, friends, and you know who it is. So let's ask him to join us. General? Greetings and salutations, my friends. 'Tis I, leader of men, lover of women, and best friend to Jim Kirk. General Trelane, retired. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an original series episode of Star Trek, I like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what went on behind the camera, because as we've often said, the story behind the camera of the original series is sometimes just, if not more, intriguing than what went on in front of the camera. But to keep myself from wandering off into the weeds for 3 hours, I've given myself 5 categories in which to explore. The first, writer and director. Who were they? The second, guest stars. Did we have any? The third, core cast, or the big 8, who was present? And the fourth and juiciest of all the categories, the production notes, what went on behind the cameras? And fifth, last but not least, a memorable quote from this episode. Let's move on. All right, my friends, and for our first category, writer and director, who were they? Well, we actually had 2 writers in this, and believe it or not, we'll get into it a little bit more down in production notes, but our writers were the 2 Genes, Gene Coon and Gene Roddenberry. Our director for this episode was none other than Ralph Sininsky. This was his 4th episode for this season, his 5th episode in total for this, the Star Trek original series. I always think Sininsky does a great job. He's very, very dependable, and whenever he comes in, you can tell that hopefully things went smooth. We'll get more into that down in production notes. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our second category, guest stars. Did we have any in this episode? We surely did. Let's find out who they were. First, we have William Smithers as Merrick. We have Rhodes Reason, owner of the greatest name ever, Rhodes Reason as Flavius. We have Logan Ramsey as Claudius, and we have Ian Wolfe as Septimus, he of deviated fame. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our third category of the core cast, or the big 8, who was present? Well, our core cast consists of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Sulu, Scotty, Uhura, and added for season 2, Chapel and Chekhov. Of the big 8 who was present, we had 6 of them, but no Chapel and no Sulu. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our fourth category, production notes, what went on behind the cameras? This is where the interesting things start to pop up and we find out if there were script problems, production problems, or, in the rare instance, did everything go smoothly? Let's find out. All right, everybody, and for our first production note, as promised, anytime, and I hate to say this, but it seems to be more often than not, anytime Gene Roddenberry is credited with an episode, more often than not, we have some type of script issue. Now, this issue arose from Gene Coon and Gene Roddenberry got a hold of a story by, and I'm going to really butcher this guy's name, John Neubel. It's spelled Kneubuhl, so I'm probably completely butchering that. But anyway, they got a hold of this guy's story, and they rewrote it so much, according to Roddenberry, that he didn't get a credit for it. That obviously caused some problems. I'm not going to get too much into that because I had a kind of conflict between what was said and what was actual, but let's just say that there was some tension. The real tension that has been documented across numerous sources was between Gene Coon and Gene Roddenberry. In fact, they fought so violently over this script in particular. Apparently there had been a lot going on, but this script seemed to be the thunderhead for everything. They argued about its weight. They argued about the tension. They argued about how things would be produced and are storyboarded out for the episode. And many, many people credit this episode, Bread and Circuses, as being the moment when their split was irrevocable. They just could not go back. And again, apparently Gene Coon was working through throat cancer at the time. And so whenever he left John Meredith Lucas as his replacement, that was it for the union between Roddenberry and Coon. And I can only imagine what would have happened had they continued, and obviously if Coon had been in good health, because his contributions to this series are without measure. They're like the stars in the sky. So a very kind of down one to start off on. So let's pick it up a little bit. Let's move on. Now, here's a fun one, since we just came off of a kind of a downer for our second production note. The caves were all of the children of the sun, as they were called here in Bread and Circuses. The cave system, I thought, was Vasquez Rocks Natural Park, but it was not. In fact, it was a series of rocks that's very, very close to the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles. It also happens to be, among other things, it happens to be where they filmed Invasion of the Body Snatchers, several episodes of Kung Fu, but what is probably best known as the entrance to the Batcave. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our third production note, I thought I'd bounce around between like feeling good and kind of down production notes in this one. But during a visit to the set, John Meredith Lucas, accompanying Gene Roddenberry, was struck by how weird the energy had become on the set. Let me read you the quote that he said. This is from Meredith Lucas. Shatner came around the corner, and when he saw Gene, he turned around and went the other way. And the cast was fighting too. All the actors complained to me about all the other actors. And so this was the first time that I had actually run into like the kind of the interpersonal kind of family dynamic going on behind the scenes. But apparently it gets worse. Again, I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt until I actually get to it. But several people kind of foreshadowed this as the beginning of some type of rift among the cast. We'll see. Let's move on. And as promised, with our fourth production note, we're back to the fun. Ted Cassidy, Rock from What Are Little Girls Made Of, was filming The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And he came over in full costume during the shooting of this to kind of lighten the mood. And all the rest of the cast and crew were in on it, save Bill Shatner. And when Bill came onto the set and ready to do his thing, all of a sudden, Ted Cassidy appears in full regalia, runs over and throws Bill Shatner over his massive shoulder and runs with him out as Shatner is screaming. Let me see, what is the quote that Shatner said? Hey, I don't know. I'm sorry. Hey, I don't know about you, but this is not the way it should work. I want you to know. I don't know what the hell that means. Other than I guess he was just complaining that he was being carried off by Ted Cassidy, who apparently was a huge friend of many, many people on the set. And despite really not having that much in season 2, he always appeared when he was on studio lot to say hi to everybody. I thought that was really cool. And anytime Ted Cassidy pops up, you can be sure that I and Trelane shall mention it. Let's move on. And now for our fifth production note, and this one's a pretty nice one too. As we guessed, a lot of times during this kind of stretch, and you all know better than I, these parallel Earths were kind of used because they could cannibalize set pieces and costumes from other productions to lower costs for Star Trek. So this one in particular, a number of the costumes and props were recycled from Paramount's storage vaults, including the Roman guards' outfits. Many of these items were originally made for Cecil B. DeMille epics such as The Sign of the Cross, Cleopatra, and The Crusades. Friends, let's move on. And last but certainly not least, friends, is our memorable quote from this episode. And once again, I've picked good old Dr. McCoy Plum to deliver it because this one, as soon as I heard it, I knew was going to be our leave line for this Q&A. This is the exchange between McCoy and Spock inside the jail cell, and I quote, "Do you know why you're not afraid to die, Spock? You're more afraid of living. Each day you stay alive is just one more day you might slip and let your human half peek out." One of my favorite ones from McCoy because it shows he knows his good buddy Spock. Friends, thus ends another installment of Q&A. I, your host, General Trelane Retired, tell you, until we meet again, behave yourselves.